Copper products here, you guys can see. And we've got Eric here. He's the owner of all this stuff. How you doing, Eric?
Good.
Good, good. And good pricing here. It's just an example of what you can get at these shows. So these are really cool. And $2 each for the rounds.
YouTube, how you guys doing? Welcome to another episode of the Silver and Gold Stack Attack. As always, I hope everyone's doing well, and I just want to thank you for being here and for all the amazing support. You guys already know you're a part of the best damn community here on YouTube, without a doubt. So I was struggling to think of a video to do this weekend, and honestly, I just couldn't come up with anything. Anything that hasn't already been done within the community recently, so I figured it was time for something different.
Run! Go! Get to the chopper!
No, we're not going to get to the chopper. We're going to talk about copper. Now, I'm not sure how closely most of you follow copper price, but it actually did hit an all-time high on May 21st, 2024 at $5.11 a pound. Now, let's take a quick look at how copper's price has increased just since last October 2023, and then we'll go over some of the different copper products we can stack, if you want to call it that, copper's potential to climb, and then I'll end the video with my opinion on whether or not we should be serious about it. We'll also cover how the red metal is vital to industry, as well as which countries are using the most of it. And finally, we'll see if copper has the potential to be the next silver. Let's get it. So in looking at the chart, we can see that copper price has fallen back a little bit since that all-time spike of $5.11, and it's sitting at $4.43 today. Now, one thing to focus on is that just last October 2023, the price of copper per pound was at $3.53. Now, moving forward, it wouldn't go any lower than that, with a spike 2 days after Christmas that year, a few dips, and then a steady arc moving upward since that point. You can see it here, including that all-time high. And that leaves many wondering if copper has the potential to be the next silver. Well, that's a pretty lofty goal, even with the climbing price. Now, a lot of us do love the red metal, myself included. To me, it has the best color of any of the precious or base metals. It's vital for industry, and it's a lot of fun to throw in the furnace and create some really cool pieces. But there's a lot more of it in the ground than there is silver, so I think it's a pretty big stretch to think that it'll ever be, quote-unquote, the next silver. And when it comes down to it, copper is a base metal and not a precious metal. But could it at least take the same path for increasing in value like silver? Well, copper price depends on a lot of factors, and there have been consistent physical supply shortages in comparison to demand over the last few years. So in relation to that, let's take a quick look at which countries are using the most copper in the world. So starting with China, 57%, they're using 57% of the world's supply of copper. And then you see other emerging markets, USA and all of Europe, pretty far distance behind. That's crazy. That's crazy. But China is the biggest consumer of copper. So what is copper mainly being used for? Well, I'm going to give you three. First off, industry. Copper is used for motor parts, wiring, piping, industrial machinery, plumbing, you name it. It is probably in a house in every building that you'll ever see. Another big usage is for EVs. Each electric vehicle uses right around 183 pounds of copper, and that goes to motors, batteries, wiring. And keep in mind, that's significantly more than your standard vehicles. And with EVs gaining, ironically, more steam each year, that just means that copper is going to be in even more demand. They're calling for a 1.7 million ton increase for copper by 2027, and that could put a strain on the supply. They're going to have to dig up a lot more. Now, personally, I'm not buying an EV. I'm just going to keep driving my gas-powered car until I can't. And lastly is bullion and jewelry. Look, silver by itself is a soft metal, which is why you see a lot of jewelry being made up of sterling silver. It adds copper to the mix, making sterling 92.5% silver and 7.5% copper. So it acts as a hardener and gives jewelry more stability. And lo and behold, for bullion, well, those gold eagles that we love so much also have copper in them. They're not pure gold. They're actually 91.67% gold, or 22 karat. And the rest is primarily made up of copper and just a touch of silver. That's why some of them have an orange tint to them. You see it all the time. Now, if you're looking for a more pure blend of gold coin, you might want to go with the Gold Buffalo since they're 24 karat or 4/9 fine, 99.99% pure gold. And these are really popular with American Gold stackers. And for other options, Perth Mint and the Royal Canadian Mint also use 4/9 fine, and sometimes 5/9 fine for gold for their bullion. Now, if there's any copper mixed in those, it's barely a trace amount. So, should we be stacking copper? Well, if you're looking to hold some physical copper, then you do have some options on the bullion side, like these bars and rounds that I've got shown here, and sometimes even some pours. Those are popular. But here's the problem with copper bullion. The premiums are off the chart stupid. For example, let's take one of these copper rounds like this Canadian maple. You saw they were selling for $2 each at the show, right? Well, you're going to need 16 of them to get to a pound, so you're looking at $32 total for the rounds. Now think back on our copper price chart that we showed earlier. It was showing at $4.43 a pound, or $4.43 a pound. We just spent almost $28 over the price per pound if we add it up in that manner. So for this stuff, the premium is covering the manufacturing and labor costs. I mean, when it comes down to it, they're putting just about as much effort into stamping out these bars and rounds as they would for silver and gold coins, and they can't just give them away. Now you might be thinking, hey, what about these pre-82 pennies? These are great, right? Well, yeah, they're worth 2 to 3 cents each right now, so that seems like a great return. Yeah, sure, but again, you'd need tons of them to make it worth your while, so weight and storage once again comes into play. Anyway, for bullion, I say buy what you like, but it's tough to stack copper in this way. You know, buy the good stuff, stuff that appeals to you, but you're going to need a ton of space. And I mean that literally, if you're going to hold physical copper for profit. Now, as of right now, I just don't think copper bullion is a feasible or prudent way to take advantage of the rising price. You're just paying too much for stuff like this. But knowing this, it's still an insanely fun metal to buy in bullion form because it's cheap, except for stuff like this Geiger bar or even the germanium mint copper bars. Now you're talking about major premiums on top of the overblown price. Now that I've shown you all of this stuff, we should all have an understanding that copper isn't likely going to be the next silver, and stacking it in bullion form, well, that should only be for fun and for buying what you like. But there's no question that copper price has a lot of potential to make some movement over the next decade. And if you still want to jump aboard the copper train without storing tons of bullion or scrap copper in your garage, thereby pissing off your better half to no end, by the way, well, there are a couple of other ways to invest in copper without holding physical metal. For example, you can invest in futures contracts, which is basically an agreement to buy or sell an amount of copper at a predetermined price at a specific time in the future. You can also have exchange-traded funds or ETFs, exchange-traded commodities or ETCs. Now, both of these hold copper in physical form, allegedly, so you can own copper without having to physically store it. And one last one. Actively managed funds. Basically, these generally invest in mining companies, okay? Let's just say it. Rather than the underlying copper itself. You're investing in the company. But hey, don't panic. This isn't a mining video. I'm not about to plug mining companies. That's not what this channel's all about. You guys know that. I don't do that stuff. Regardless of how much they've offered me to take on the work, I'm standing by that. Anyway, as with anything you invest your money into, please do your due diligence before throwing your cash at ETFs and mining company stocks. While copper is a valuable industrial metal, there is also a hell of a lot of volatility involved with it, mainly the expense of mining it due to capital requirements. And let's face it, it requires companies to take on a lot of debt, which could lead to bankruptcy.
This can only end in tears.
So there's risk. Mining the stuff is also controversial due to the large geographical area that mines cover. And then there's always the threat of labor disputes in Chile, which is the biggest importer of copper. So you have a lot of stuff to consider before you invest in copper. All right, there you have it, guys. So what are your thoughts on copper? Do you have some? Do you stack it just for fun? Are you serious about it? Are you stacking to sell it at some point at a profit? Or is it just something you don't touch at all? Leave me some feedback down below. I'd love to hear from you. You know I go through all the comments. I have a blast doing it, so make sure you sound off. And that's going to wrap it up for this episode of the Silver and Gold Stack Attack. And if you made it this far, well, kudos to you. I'll definitely catch up with you in the next episode. But in the meantime, yeah, you know what's up.
What do you want to do with your life?
I want to stack.
Damn right, get stacked. Stay safe and be well, everyone. I am out of here. Peace, folks.
You're still here? It's over. Go home. Go.
Oh, yes. And what was that beginning, middle, and end part again?